Welcome to Points in the Podcast. I am Elias Schuster. As always, I am joined by Matt Rooney. We haven't been here 2 weeks, but technically we were here. I'm just gonna throw that out there. There was an
The real
episode
one saw
last week.
last week. The real
Yeah.
one saw it.
So if you happen to follow the Betsford's YouTube page, which you should go subscribe to, there's more shows than just our show on there. But our show streams live on there, and then the BN Bulls Twitter account or X, whatever you want to call it, we stream live on there. That episode exists. However, the audio was a little hit or miss when I went back and decided to edit. And it just, not to say that it wasn't a good show. It was a fine show. It was a perfectly
The
adequate
video was
show.
also a little hit or miss on your part. We had some issues because you were recording in a basement with some bad internet. And I think when we started, or before we started, your video cut out. And I was like, hey, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Yeah.
So you left the room, came back, things were fine. Then about 5 minutes into the show, and
great.
I was just like, you know what? We can hear them.
Sometimes you just gotta move on. Sometimes you gotta just decide to go to the next best thing. And
if anyone wants to start paying for us to record in a professional podcast studio, we'd happily take that from you. If not, we'll just keep doing it this way.
Maybe there's some really rich fan of the show that just wants to help us blow it up, and
somebody's got to have some good money out there. Come on.
Oh, I'm sure. So it exists. Like I said, you can go back, you can watch. We were here last week, but now we're back on the full scale on the podcast channels as well. And no better time really, because the trade deadline is a little over a week away. We're under the 2-week mark now. It will be February 8th. That is Thursday, the second week of February. It's things are heating up a tiny bit. We get more and more trades across the league. We've seen, obviously the Knicks have made their OG Anunoby move, but more so the Raptors have really blown things up. They sent Siakam to the Pacers. We saw Kyle Lowry traded to the Charlotte Hornets for Miami to add Terry Rozier, which I think was an awesome addition for them. And that was he was probably one of the most underrated players on the market, Rozier. Just really solid salary compared to where salaries are going now. He only makes about 22 million a year, I believe, and has been having the best year of his career. So he's a great fit for Miami. And yeah, so these trades are snowballing, and we're getting more and more. And that just, it makes it hard not to think about what could happen with the Chicago Bulls, because they remain, I think, one of the biggest blow it up potential teams in the league, if that makes sense. They remain a favorite among contenders, hoping that they decide to sell off at this deadline. The Bulls thus far have given pretty little indication that they plan to do anything. That's always how they go. Arturas Karnisovas likes to keep things close to the vest, and we rarely know which direction they're going. And I think if I had to guess, Matt, with the deadline 2 weeks away, I think every game is impacting what their decision making could be. Does that mean it should? No, I think they should know what they're doing at this point. We've talked about it on the show. They need to take a step back. They need to trade their pieces. But if I had to put myself in the front office's shoes, look at what we've seen over the past 2 transactional periods where they've really done nothing, my guess is every single game is an evaluation period right now for them. And these last 2 haven't been great.
It feels like this front office is probably acting the same way fans do, and it's not a very good thing. Like after every game, it's probably just they're immediately jumping to conclusions. Like after the Suns game, like I know they lost it, but it's like, man, like that was a great game. Like they played really well, went down to the wire. KD just did KD things and we lost it. Whatever that happens, like we're good. And then the Lakers game happens last night, and the defense doesn't look good, and D'Angelo Russell goes off. It's like, oh, maybe we're not that good. I feel like you're right. I feel like they're just going probably game by game.
Yeah.
And each result probably convinces them to go one way or go from one side back to the other, because that's pretty much how this Bulls team is.
When in doubt, I think they lean in the direction of keeping stuff together, because that's all we've seen from them in the past is 14-9 at the end of season last year.
You're right.
We're going to keep it together.
You're right, but I feel like at least the last week or so, we talked a little bit the last couple of weeks about how there's been like some just no talk, like nothing, no whispers about LaVine, no whispers about Caruso, no whispers about DeRozan. This last week, while there's nothing concrete and there's no Team X has certainly reached it, there's starting to be a little bit more. Well, the Pistons have checked in on Zach LaVine, and those 2 have talked, and the Bucks have checked in on Caruso, and that's not going to happen. But and Woj is saying he knows for a fact the price is multiple first-round picks or price tag is very high, whatever. We're starting to get more nuggets about that. So that leads me to believe Woj doesn't have that unless he's talked to somebody in the know, and somebody in the know is either someone in the Bulls front office or someone in the Bulls front office that the Bulls front office has talked to. which means they're talking to someone about
Right.
it, which
The
means
talks are happening. Yeah.
the Caruso calls aren't being rebuffed at least anymore, that they're at least picking up the phone. I still don't think that gets done because I still think they love him so much. And I think that his value in the offseason, if you do end up wanting to move him there, is still probably pretty high, and they love his culture fit. And he is a great culture fit. There's no doubt about that.
Sure.
Zach's going to be tough, but the Pistons, at least the Pistons report yesterday, combined with what Casey Johnson is kind of saying today about, well, maybe the Bulls are actually kind of protecting the asset.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the gif of the Undertaker hand coming out of the grave, or like the Undertaker doing the sit up. Like it might not happen, but like there's still some life there to this thing might get done before the deadline.
Well,
But the
yeah,
one that
what I
should
would
be, DeMar needs to be gone. I love DeMar DeRozan. That has nothing to do with DeMar DeRozan as a person, as a Bull, as a basketball player. If you own a DeMar DeRozan jersey, that jersey is good to be
I have
worn at the
one.
United Center. Great, it's good forever. You can always bring that back. That's not going to be a weird one. He's a Bull. Like, in short time, I'm not sure so many people have made as big of an impact on the Bulls as he has, or at least on the fan base. But he serves no purpose to you in the second half. You have to trade him. You have to get rid of him. And I beat it like a dead horse last week, but like, call the Knicks about that Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier first round pick package. Just that's perfect. It's perfect for both sides. Sorry, go ahead. I know I cut you off a little bit there.
No, that's all good, and you're all 100% correct. I think what I was going to bring up, which I want to get into the LaVine thing specifically, but before we do that, what I was just going to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying is, yeah, if you want to look on the bright side, one, we've gotten a little bit more and more as the deadline has inched closer in relation to what the Bulls could do or who they've been talking to, or just the fact that, like you said, clearly if the 2 first round pick thing is out there, then the Bulls have had those conversations with somebody, and whether it's them telling them or the rival front office. But the other thing is, you can go back to that first season with Arturas and Mark Eversley, under the hood for the Bulls. They did have no word about what they were going to do. They said, we were evaluating, we're open to all things. And then at that deadline, they completely changed everything and they blew it up, and they trade for Vucevic. And then the summer happens and they do everything. So keeping things close to the vest doesn't always mean inactivity. It has the past 2 years, and that's been frustrating. And that's why that's why it can be hard to believe that something will come of this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they were completely quiet, similar fashion before the deadline in 2021. So it is totally possible that they finally, even though it took them too long, whatever, that's why it's so frustrating, because it's totally possible they do recognize that and they will do something, but it's also possible the other way. And so that's the problem with when you have a front office that's super quiet. You just never quite know, as someone from the outside, or even those on the inside, even those beat reporters who, I talked to a couple of them that are close, like while they're going to have a little bit better of a feel than someone on the outside will, it's still up in the air, because that front office will keep things very close to the vest. So it could go one way or the other. But yeah, let's talk about that LaVine thing, because that is the juiciest report that we've had on Zach LaVine in quite some time, because there was the Lakers stuff. There was always
outside of the Lakers stuff. There's been nothing.
Right.
There's been nothing but speculation.
And also, let's go back, just going back to the Laker thing, what we've talked about on the show, what I've written at Bleacher Nation, it's not a good offer. Nobody wants that offer. So even though there's been the Lakers,
D'Angelo Russell had 8 threes last night.
He was doing everything he could to make the Bulls start salivating. But yeah, that we know that the Bulls likely wouldn't want that offer. And who knows, at the deadline, maybe they would have lowered got desperate, whatever. But the chances were, yeah, the Lakers were there as an interested party, but even then, that never felt like anything that could really come to fruition, just because the offer wasn't good. And we know the Bulls aren't going to accept, while they need to lower their asking price, they aren't going to accept, 2 bad salaries and 1 protected first round pick potentially for LaVine. Like, they need something a little bit better than that. Now, does that mean they can get what they're asking the Pistons for, which we could talk about? The report came from James L. Edwards the third over at The Athletic. He does a great job covering the Pistons, has for quite some time. And he gave his latest intel column. It was really the first time we've heard about the Pistons being interested in Zach LaVine, but he was very, very specific and intentional with his wording. He said that the Bulls and Pistons have had conversations involving Zach LaVine. That's the quote there. I'll continue. And I quote, "Chicago appears to be locked in on a package involving Bojan Bogdanovic and one of Detroit's blue chippers for LaVine and his hefty contract. once again, the Pistons have shown no interest in parting ways with any of Cunningham, Ivy, Duren, or Thompson. Is it possible Detroit considers adding LaVine when if the Bulls' asking price goes down? However, those are discussions that have been happening and will continue to happen internally, end quote. So very clear. Like, yes, this hasn't gone anywhere right now, but they're interested. And I think that end part to me, and I wrote about it, is just the biggest deal is if the Bulls lower their asking price a little bit, they sound ready to do this. This isn't just, oh, they're a little bit interested in LaVine. It's like, no, one, the Bulls have asked for certain things. There's been a back and forth of some kind, it appears. And two, Detroit's interested enough where they're like, hey, if you can meet us halfway here, like we're interested in getting this done.
I need to know what meeting them halfway is, though, because
I agree.
You need Bogdanovich for the salary filler. Obviously, he's got to be the kind of.
But
the
you
great
don't.
equalizer
You don't.
there.
I have trades we could talk about. You don't need.
Oh, okay, great. Then if you don't need him, that's also fine. But also, I feel like that's somebody the Pistons would want to just part ways with. I like the idea of Jaden Ivey in a first round pick, and quite honestly, I'm not certain why they wouldn't be willing to part with Jaden Ivey in a first round pick. I like Jaden Ivey. I don't think he's a star right now. I don't think he's necessarily on like an all-star track, and you have a guy in Zach LaVine who is in the middle of his prime, who is an all-star scorer when healthy, who's now showing he's kind of capable of being a pretty complete basketball player and playing more of a team game, at least in a limited sample size. He showed that since he got back. And I think it was in your article yesterday, 2 days ago, whenever you wrote about this. Like, I get that you like your core and your prospects, but prospects only break your heart. And Zach LaVine is kind of like, what he is right now. You know what he is. And the Jaden Ivey's best case scenario is probably turning into Zach LaVine. So why the hell wouldn't you want to bring in a Zach LaVine who's not old by any means, who's still got a long way to go in his career, to kind of be the steady hand leader of this young group that's really, really good and I shouldn't say really good, but does seem to have some really talented pieces. Why wouldn't you want to move Jaden Ivey? And I get you don't want to give up 2025 first round pick because you're probably going to suck still, but like a 2026 or a 2027 number one, because I think they have, like you said, they have control of every first round pick from now until 2030. Like,
yeah, I think I think there is a little bit something with that where, a certain pick they have gone doesn't convey. There's some little things, but for the most part, they can trade those. They can
Ivy in a 2027 one, like, why not? I feel like that's the Bulls get a first round pick and a prospect with probably not a high floor, but maybe not the highest ceiling, but somebody who would definitely be an impact player.
I mean, I still think Ivy is, Jaden Ivey's 20 years old. What is it? 21 years old. And I think that he's, he's 21 years old still. I totally think that there's a world where he can still turn into, he's a top 5 pick. Like, so there's a world where he can still, I think, turn into an all-star caliber player. And he just has needed some room to grow. I think there was always questions right away about how Cunningham and Ivy would fit together. And a lot of people thought that the Pistons were going to trade Ivy. They thought, one, they'd trade that pick, and then they didn't. They took Ivy, which was the right move at the time. It was the taking the best player available. But then a lot of people thought, too, they were even removed. I remember that draft night. There were even reports after they selected Ivy that Ivy was going to be traded that night. And when it didn't happen, people were surprised. They said, okay, Detroit could have one of the best young backcourts in the league, or they could have a fit that doesn't really make sense. And it's been the latter of that, right?
It's been a fit that doesn't make sense.
Right. And so I think that if you're interested in LaVine, other than using Ivy as a potential trade chip in another deal, I have no idea why they would not consider just moving him in this deal, because again, I know he's the top 5 pick, whatever. But at the same time, we're talking about a guy that isn't going to make any sense playing with LaVine. No. You can't have Ivy, Cunningham, and LaVine. And maybe some people might try to talk themselves into that idea. You already couldn't have Cunningham and Ivy. So you add LaVine into that, and it's not going to make sense. So from that perspective,
only one ball. There's only one ball.
Yeah. When we talk about Jaden Ivey being part of the trade, which I don't see them doing right now, that's why it makes tons of sense for them to do that. And then you also can, so I understand why they don't want to move him, but at the same time, I think it makes sense to do it. And
you can't fall in love with your prospects, though. Like, that's the thing. And it seems like Detroit is a little
39.
bit exactly. And if Detroit was even 10-34, if that's the right math, and they maybe had a win against like the Celtics or something, and look like you could even talk yourself into it, but like as much upside as these prospects have, like you're 5-39. There's something wrong there. You need to go out and I'm not saying you need to make major changes because you're in the midst of a rebuild, but like there are tweaks to be made. You can't just keep riding that out and expect more, expect next year to be different because, oh, well, all these guys have played one more year in the league, so they're just going to be better. Like that's not necessarily going to be the case. You need to put them in a position to grow. And I think getting a guy like Zach LaVine, who's like, again, I know it hasn't worked out here and he wants out, but like he's a good teammate. His teammates like him. He's been a good leader for the young guys. Obviously, earlier in the year, there were some problems with deferring to him, but like he came back and that hasn't been an issue. He's not a guy who's going to come in and demand the ball right away. Like he seems like a really good fit for a team like Detroit
His
that
fit
wants to
next to
kind of.
Cade would make a lot of sense too, in my
They
opinion.
would.
I know that LaVine is kind of viewed as this ball dominant guy in some fashions, but he's not. He's
Best
a
role is catch and
talented,
shoot.
yeah, he's a talented off-ball scorer who
Sorry,
needs
I'm
to
going
be
to put in
put
a cough
next.
drop if I make noise.
No, you're good. He's a talented off-ball scorer who needs to be put with a more true facilitator. And Cade is a smart passer, still a little bit too turnover prone, but very gifted when it comes to court vision and a high IQ guy. So I think that fit could make a lot of sense moving forward. And I get it. Like I'm not trying to necessarily say that Pistons fans should be super excited about the idea of adding LaVine. I get it. He's a hot and cold figure in a lot of ways because of his lack of success at the NBA level. But also, you're a franchise that doesn't get marquee free agents. Like a DeMar DeRozan isn't going to sign with the Pistons. Like you're not going to be getting these big name guys, especially when you're 5-39. So if you have an opportunity here to add someone who's been an all-star, someone who totally can be an all-star again in LaVine. Some people might question that, but I don't. I think as long as he's having, his normal healthy season, he's going to be in the mix for an all-star nod. And you get to add a player like that. So, and that's why I think ultimately these rumors are happening and why they're interested, because they're like, okay, we have all these young guys. That's been great. We thought we could build all these young guys up together. But what we're seeing is we need someone else in here who has a little bit more experience, even if it's not crazy great winning experience, just somebody who is truly talented. We know what they're at right now, and LaVine's still 28 years old and in the middle of his prime, so he can help carry the load a little bit while we tweak the rest of the roster and these young guys begin to develop. So I think I understand from that point. Now what I want to say too is, so the Bulls, what was reported by The Athletic, they're asking for Bojan Bogdanovic and one of those guys like an Ivy or whatever. That's not happening. I think that's ridiculous. The Bulls, I think, know it's ridiculous. They've held LaVine to way too high of a standard this entire time. They've believed that he can get this all-star level return. Maybe the Pistons cave. I doubt it. But the chance of them getting that is not going to happen, which is why the report also says they're going to have to lower their asking price. So is that asking for just one of the blue chippers who apparently they don't want to move on for? Maybe. You can do a deal. I had a couple outlined, which we'll get to more fake trades later. But if you want to talk about an Ivy deal that works on paper, I had one written here that I'm going to pull up. It would be Jaden Ivey, Alec Burks, Monte Morris, Joe Harris, protected 2028 first-round pick. That would get you Zach LaVine. I honestly think that the Pistons would be a little bit hesitant, honestly, because even Alex Burks is in that deal, who they could trade separately for potentially another pick or something. But, a deal like that, money-wise, everything, that gets the green light. It works. The Bulls are basically getting Ivy and a protected pick for LaVine, which would be, you're buying high, definitely, on Ivy in that case. The other type of deal that could work, like I said at the beginning, you don't need Ivy to make it work. You don't need Bojan Bogdanovic to make it work, which I already think the Bulls shouldn't go that route of trying to have Bogdanovic part of the trade, because yeah, you could trade him again next year when he's on the last year of his deal or something, but he's the exact type of guy they shouldn't be going after. He's 34 years old. Like he's good. He is good. He's a talented scorer, but he's perfect for a contender. And I'm sure the Pistons would like to trade him separately at this deadline and get something for him instead of using him in a LaVine deal. And I just think the Bulls in general, and you got to get a young piece here. You got to get some picks, and they're not going to give you Bojan Bogdanovic and a couple picks. So if you want to focus on draft capital, another deal that works would be Killian Hayes, Monte Morris, Joe Harris, and 2 first-round picks for Zach LaVine. My guess would be both of those protected, one maybe unprotected, probably not, but both probably lightly protected. I would be okay with that as well, because I think you get those 2 first rounders, and I know you're not getting that blue chip prospect, but when have the Pistons been able to put it together? And so I will
Yeah.
take you with it. If you want to have picks in this league, you'll gladly take Pistons picks. And at least with Killian Hayes, he's up for a new contract soon, but he's a true point guard. He's still only 21 years old, and you get another young prospect who was a top 10 pick, I believe, or he's 22, I should say. Yeah, he was number 7 in the 2020 NBA draft. So he's obviously struggled to come into his own in Detroit, but you give him a change of scenery, you probably can get him on a cheap deal and see if he can develop and play next to someone like Coby White, because Hayes is not the shooter type. He's way more of the passing type. So you get another prospect like that. I know that's not as sexy as a deal, but it's also one that I think the Pistons, if the Pistons would accept that deal. If that's the goal, then I think that's what the Bulls would have to offer.
Yeah, I get it. And if that's the goal, they'd accept it. They'd probably still accept that in the offseason too. So if that's all they're offering prior to the deadline, I'd probably take this to the offseason. And if I don't know, if I lose a piece because of that, fine. But at that point, I would probably rather take this until the summer and see what else is out there, see who else is interested, see if you can spark somewhat of a bidding war, or at least fake one. Give the illusion to get the Pistons to give you exactly what you want, because that's a fine deal.
What about it? So about that type of deal, what about it for you? Because let's say like the Jaden Ivey thing,
and I don't know, and you said lightly protected first round picks, but like the NBA draft is kind of a crapshoot. It's not even kind of a crapshoot. It is a crapshoot. Like this year's draft, I'm doing mock drafts every week. Like last year's draft was good. It was great. It had Wembanyama at the top. It had Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, who isn't looking all that great. But like this year's draft is one that's seen as fairly kind of weak and a whole lot of unknowns. And
I'm not saying
I would rather.
I'm saying they're 2026.
Fair. I'm not. But no. What I'm saying is,
right.
You don't know what 2 years the draft 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road is going to look like. And what if you get unlucky in the 2 drafts you have picks for, kind of these crap drafts, and you end up with a 6th overall pick in a draft with a bad field? I would rather have the proven. Not to say what Jaden Ivey's proven commodity, but like he can play in the league. You know what his ceiling is. You know what you think you can get out of him. I'd rather have the proven commodity.
See, but that's what I think is, and I don't blame you at all for that thinking. I think that's the right thinking. The problem is I don't know if that's what LaVine can get you. So
that's fine. If the offer is the one you presented with the 2 first round picks and Killian Hayes, that offer probably isn't going anywhere. The Pistons might say it's going somewhere, but if you call them in July and present them with the same offer, something similar, whatever, it's probably still there. I would rather take this to July though, and talk to other teams.
I get that.
See if there's contenders that fall flat. See if the Lakers all of a sudden lose LeBron and get a little bit desperate. Whatever. I don't know. It's not a bad offer, but it's just I would probably want to take this to the summer, because it's
right. And I don't.
If the Pistons are interested now, they're not going to not be interested in June.
Right, and I don't disagree with that logic. I just think that that overall idea of at the end of the day, whatever trade the Bulls get for LaVine probably isn't going to be what anyone likes. And that doesn't mean it's a bad trade.
We're all going to be underwhelmed.
It's probably going to be pretty underwhelming, and we have to accept that at this point. And so I think getting someone like getting an Ivy, let's say, would be a huge win. And that's why I think that's the unrealistic one, because you're getting a former top 5 guy. Yeah, he's struggled at times, but also the Pistons have struggled as a whole entire team. So if you get a top 5 pick for LaVine, then it's like you actually made the most out of LaVine almost in a deal potentially. And I think the only type of team that's going to offer you a talent like Ivy is Detroit, because if you're getting LaVine, they don't need Ivy. And Ivy also they've had a bunch of young guys and they just all haven't fit together. So it's a rare situation where you could potentially get that. And it goes back to that word. It's rare. So that's the only scenario where I see the Bulls getting a prospect of that caliber. Yeah. Otherwise, I do think you probably have to settle for picks, to get the deal done.
And I think a part of it too for me is, I know Zach was good in the limited time he's been back, but you're still probably selling at his lowest value. And if you don't trade him by the deadline, he's not going to sit out the rest of the year. You're going to play him. You're going to try again and play better, maximize his value. And if the Bulls do go on a little bit of a run and go to the play-in and maybe win one of the top 2 spots in the play-in, get to a playoffs, and Zach looks good, all of a sudden that value is, I know you stay healthy. That's the risk, obviously. But like all of a sudden, that value goes up a little bit, and maybe Zach does have a great, play-in tournament and scores 30 a night or something like that, and starts to impact winning. I've seen that phrase more in the last 3 weeks than I ever have in my
Yeah.
life. Impact winning. I don't know. And again, I'm definitely team trade Zach, but I just think you can create somewhat of a bidding war in the summer. And if it ends up being the Pistons is still the best offer without Jaden Ivey and it's Killian Hayes and those two picks, fine. I will then settle for it then. But like, I don't think that offer is going anywhere. I don't think that trade needs to be made this second.
Sure. Yeah. I think the biggest thing though, I think to take away from this Pistons, this Pistons rumor isn't a potential trade or isn't a potential, like, not what we're talking about now, which what the trade could look like. But I just think the bigger deal is the fact that it's even a rumor and the fact that it's even a report, and what it reminds us of, which is important and something I try to always preface these conversations with when we talk about a lack of market for LaVine, that things can suddenly materialize all the time around the trade deadline. The pressure is on. Teams get desperate. The reality kind of slaps you across the face. And a team like the Bulls, same thing. Reality slaps them across the face. They realize what their assets are actually worth, and they lower their asking price. So at the end of the day, if there's another random rumor that pops up about, hey, the Nets are now all of a sudden interested in LaVine or whatever, like, we shouldn't be surprised, because yes, his market has been quiet. That's been a two-sided thing. That's been the Bulls asking for too much money, I think. That's also been, yeah, he's been hurt. It's whatever. But a player like LaVine, a two-time All-Star, a talented scorer, begins to look a little bit more attractive when the February 8th, deadline creeps up and your team is kind of in the middle of the pack in your conference or in the playoff picture, and you need that other piece to push you over the edge. Or you're a team like the Pistons and you see an opportunity to add an all-star caliber player and maybe you just want to take it. So let's remember to keep that in mind. That's why we've always been, I think you and I have been consistent with that. Like, hey, something could always happen. It's like, yes, the last couple of weeks, it looks like it was going to drag into the offseason. It still very well could. But at the same time, you never know what could happen around the deadline. So we have to continue to keep that in mind.
I traded LaVine in 2K for Jaime Jaquez and a first-round pick. So, like, I don't know why the Bulls just don't do that.
I genuinely do not think that the Heat would trade Jaquez for LaVine.
No, they wouldn't. They'd be dumb too.
Just because Jaquez, it's not because Jaquez could be better than LaVine. It's just Jaquez is the perfect Heat player. And
I think we said that the first show we did after the draft talking about them. He's just the perfect fit with the Heat, and he's going to be really good, and that's exactly what he is.
All right, I want to move on to this part of the show because, hey, it's that time of year. Sometimes I forget, while the Bulls are covered in meh and ickiness, I forget that part of my job is just to have fun with this and to have fun with sports and this team. And so I went ahead and I mocked up a ton of fake trades. Those fake trades are all going to be at BleacherNation.com. They're going to be published after this podcast is up. You can go. There's probably over 10 or so fake trades in there. And the premise, the thought experiment here is blowing up the whole roster. Let's say the Bulls did press self-destruct, which I wrote, the chances of that happening are probably as good as my chances of coming in under budget on my wedding. Probably, that doesn't happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So, but if they were to self-destruct this roster, trade everybody, do a whole fire sale, I made trades, and I did it 3 rounds where they sell everybody to see what they can get. So I want to give people a reason to go read potentially. So I'm not going to go all through all the trades, but I pulled some out here for Matt, you to grade, and you can tell me your thoughts on these deals. And the first one we already discussed, so I'm not going to go to that one. That was the first one I pulled out that I wanted to talk about, was that Killian Hayes, Monte Morris, Joe Harris, 2 first-round picks. So your grade on that basically was, if that's the deal, I want to wait till the offseason.
Yeah, I was not accept or decline. I was hold.
Hold. Okay, let's do that. Let's do accept, decline.
Was not buy or sell. That was hold.
All right. So yeah, buy, sell, hold, accept, decline. If you're the opposing front office, let's do accept, decline, or I guess
call you back.
Call you back. All right. So the next deal I have, this one is with the Lakers, and these are for all the players. Remember, we're fire selling everybody.
Yeah.
So fire selling. Yeah. Everyone's gone. The Bulls get Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, Jalen Hood-Schifino, and Christian Wood. The Lakers get DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso.
I'm going to sell. I love Austin Reeves, but I think that's a lot. How long is Austin Reeves
Let's
under
do
contract
decline.
for?
So you're declining. I think it'll make
How
more
long is
sense.
Austin Reeves under contract? I know he just signed the new deal. How long is this deal?
4 years.
And it's at what? How much?
It's cheap. It's like a $50 million.
You know what? You know what? No, I'll take that. I'm gonna take that.
Let's see.
I love Alex Caruso, but like
he's making $13 million a year.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll accept. I've my initial thought
I think
was
that's the right move.
After I've thought about it, I would take that.
Basically, these deals are
his
all
contract's
ones.
so valuable. It puts you in a position to get a young player who can be part of a similar to a Coby White type of like, is he going to be the best player on a championship team? No, but can he be a good, a very meaningful role player on one? Sure. And it puts you in a position to clear some salary. And I know the Bulls never actually signed big time free agents, but sign a big time free agent, kind of bring somebody in.
So I think the problem with this deal would be that you're not getting another first round pick, which I think, or you're not getting the Lakers like 2029 pick.
Yeah.
But that I left that out when making this because I had that in at some point, and then I left it out and I put Jalen Hood-Schifino in there instead, their first round pick from this previous year, because I just don't think that I feel like if the Bulls actually wanted to get this done, then just the players could get it done, and then you leave out the pick, and that doesn't make. And so I actually feel like this deal would be possible, and I feel like fans would be a little bummed that.
How should I feel about Jalen Hood-Schifino?
He hasn't played a lot. He's super young. I would feel decent about him. He's worth a try. I think he'd be worth a shot. He played well at Indiana, and he's an interesting prospect. So, I would be okay accepting him back instead of a 2029 first round pick, which you just have no idea what that even is going to look like. So yeah, obviously people partnering with Caruso in this is aggravating, but the Lakers, I wrote that the Lakers are paying a premium here to get him with DeMar, and that's why they're giving up Austin Reeves, because they're not going to do it in a LaVine deal. But I think if you gave them DeMar and Alex Caruso, then I feel like there's a world where they may actually be willing to part ways with Austin Reeves if it meant getting Caruso back into the picture. So, all right, so you're accepting that one.
Yeah.
All right, this one's a fun one. I got weird with some of these. Just like I've just picked random teams a lot of times.
I would hope so.
Bulls. Okay, so the Bulls get Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson, Reggie Jackson, and a 2027 first round pick swap for, again, Alex Caruso. The Nuggets get Alex Caruso and Torrey Craig. So this is a deal with the Nuggets. The Bulls are getting 2 young forwards, Julian Strawther, a rookie, Peyton Watson. Now this one's a little selfish for me because I like just both of these guys a lot. They're both young guys that
this is an Eli trade.
In the draft process. Trade. So Julian Strawther is a rookie, Peyton Watson second year, Reggie Jackson's in there to make the money work, and then you get a pick swap. You don't get the actual pick in 2027, which you probably don't. It's not going to be that valuable. Yeah. And then the Nuggets, like I said, they get Alex Caruso and Torrey Craig.
I feel like that's one I'd say I'd call you back on. Because
I don't blame you. I
don't think you're selling too high on Caruso there, and if the Nuggets come up short. Which it's really hard to repeat in the NBA, especially when the NBA is as deep as it is this year. And if they come up short in the offseason, that's a team that's probably still going to be at the front of the line, chomping at the bit to get an Alex Caruso in the summer. So I would say call you back. I'm not declining yet. I'm not accepting. I would say let's see where we're at in June.
I think that's a deal that. I feel like that's right because I think that's a deal that
it's not a bad deal.
The Nuggets might accept, or I mean, the Nuggets might accept before the Bulls accept because the Bulls might. Again, this comes down to me liking both those forwards, those young forwards.
I think that's a deal you take if Caruso is on the last year of his deal.
Okay, yeah, or especially over the offseason. Like you get a full year of him, and you get those guys. Yeah, and I think the Nuggets, because I think the big thing is the Nuggets they did this last draft. They traded for more second round picks and more late first round picks because they want to keep their not only keep developing young guys, but keep their cap sheet a little bit. They're top heavy, of course. Jokic, Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. And they saw what they could do with Christian Brown last year, who was a rookie and contributed at a high level in the playoff time. And they thought, okay, let's keep trying to add these young guys. We have a good infrastructure. We can develop them into being inexpensive role players. that they might totally be able to continue doing that. But I wrote in the piece that we point to the Golden State Warriors who tried to do a similar thing. Now
Yeah.
their guys have been higher draft picks, so it's a little bit different. They came into the league with expectations to be more than just role players, but they tried to burn the candle at both ends, and we've seen them kind of have to throw in the towel on that method and just go back to the veteran ways because they're in a win now mode. So this deals around the philosophy, kind of like you said. Maybe they fizzle out. They're like, all right, we're still a championship team, but we need the guys
We need
that
to tinker. Yeah.
we need veterans. And so we're going to trade these young guys for one of the best perimeter defenders, and Torrey Craig, who started his NBA career with Denver, and they loved him. So I think
that.
Yeah. So I think that could be. I thought that was an interesting one. I think. As you can see, I went deep. I went deep for these. These are not just like marquee guys.
I like it.
All right, we got another one here. All right. So the Bulls get Zaire Williams, Steven Adams, and a 2026 protected first-round pick, and the Grizzlies get Nikola Vucevic.
What's left on Steven Adams' contract?
2 years, so 1 year after this. He's been hurt all the time, so you're helping them out by taking. It's a money thing. It's only a money thing with Steven Adams.
You know what? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna decline that. I think because Vooch's contract is not bad. It's movable.
True.
And also valuable in the sense of, balancing out money if you want to make a future deal. And I think we've seen from the limited time he was out, actually how valuable he has been to the offense and the younger guys in running that offense in terms of setting people up, moving the ball, and just general ball movement. I like him here, especially it's only a 3-year deal. You're not locked into it long term. It's not going to be hard to move, and I think he's a good guy to have around. So I'm going to pass on that one because, again, protected first-round picks for me really don't. They're scratch-off tickets. They're not even real lottery. They're just kind of scratchers that can maybe win you something, but usually nothing. A couple cents here and there.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say no. It's not a bad offer, but I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna hang on to Vooch because I think I like what he does and can do in that locker
so that's
room.
why one of the rounds that I did, like I said, I did 3 rounds in this piece of a fire sale, and one of them I left Vooch out entirely because I do think if you're going to keep anyone, the highest likelihood of keeping a core member is Vooch because he's under contract moving forward, and also because he's just. I think that what he can offer is best for if you go rebuild mode and you need a veteran. Like you said, he's going to be able to help those young guys develop. He's a good playmaker. You can play through him a little bit. And then also you're going to bump his stock up because his usage rating's going up. And hopefully he looks a little bit closer to what he did in Orlando for a year. And maybe that increases his trade value. So I agree. I think that, obviously I wrote all these trades out because they're ones that I think are somewhat plausible and that I might do. But I'd be totally fine not doing that because you can keep them, I think, either way. If you blow it up, you're keeping it together. I think there's a world where you can keep Vooch in the picture. But because you said no to that one, I'm going to give you one more Vooch offer. But there's another thing here. So this is the last one I'll give, and then the rest I'll leave for people to go read at bleachernation.com. Okay. Bulls get Jonathan Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis, Chris Paul, and a protected 2027 first-round pick. And the Warriors get Vucevic and Alex Caruso. I'm taking this one.
What's the protection on the first round? I don't even know if
the Warriors do this one, but because I think.
What's the protection on the first round pick?
If you get Kuminga, Trace Jackson, in the 2027, I'm going to say 1 through 10. Top 10 protected.
I'd probably take it.
Maybe top 12. I'm going to say top 10. Yeah, I would
probably take it.
Because you get Kuminga for me.
Yeah, and I know Trace Jackson Davis is also a piece that probably only works on a team like the Warriors, but still, he's looked solid at times this year, and I'm intrigued by him. He also just, I guess, not this current iteration of the Bulls front office, but he's someone the Garpax regime would have just been fascinated with, similar to a Denzel Valentine type that was just really good in college. But there's something to that. He was a really good college basketball player. He could score in a whole lot of different ways. And I know the NBA is a different game, but he's a talented basketball player. I'd like him too. So yeah, I'm taking that.
Yeah, I would too. I think, and like I said, I don't even know if the Warriors are doing that one now because Kuminga has looked better and better over the past couple of weeks. But like I said, we talked about the Warriors earlier. If they are realizing we have one last win, this is our last. The window's only slightly open right now, and I think Vucevic would fit great, honestly.
So do I.
Gold State, I think he makes a ton of sense for what they need. And then Caruso obviously makes sense too. Like, I feel like those are two players that could pump another
New
resurgence or
life
new
into
life into what they want. And you have Draymond next to Vucevic, which, clears up defensive issues. Vucevic can obviously space the floor, so that's able to leave the paint open. And his decision-making, Vucevic's decision-making surrounded by those. They haven't really had a big that could pass like that. The Warriors haven't, and they're extremely undersized right now. So I
Would
think
Chris Paul be a buyout, or would I have the chance to get a Chris Paul Bulls jersey shirt?
my guess is Chris Paul would be. I don't know. I don't think this Bulls team is going to buy out anyone. So you'd get 20
No,
games.
but
Billy Donovan, and the Bulls have Billy Donovan, and Chris
yeah,
Paul played with an OKC.
that's true.
So
And
they're going
the
to
Reinsdorfs would want to sell those Chris Paul jerseys.
they're going to keep
Chris
Paul. Yeah. Oh, for sure. So they'll keep them. All right. Well, like I said, there's more trades I came up with. And I think those do a good job. I picked those out because I think they do a good job reflecting the type of trades. Like, I'm not just going, I'm getting in the weeds here for some deals. So, and each round I did is kind of different in terms of what you're getting. Some are more pick heavy, some are more young player heavy. And yeah, so you can go read that over at bleachernation.com. All right. So Matt, the last thing I want to close with this week is just a little bit of love, a little bit of props given to Coby White, who continues to play, I think, tremendous basketball, even with the team struggling, the 2 straight losses. These were 2 of the best games I think White has had all season in a way, not because of the scoring numbers or anything in particular, but his driving these past 2 games has been the best we've ever seen from him. He just looks better and better, and against high-level competition. He's on the floor against the Suns with Durant, Booker, and Beal, and he's on the floor against LeBron and AD, and he, toe for toe, looked like one of the best players on the floor. And, you saw both games, right? Like, would you agree with the way he's out there? Obviously, he isn't those guys, but there was a fearlessness and pace of play with him where he understood. And I think he's like, no, I can score on these guys. I'm just as good as these guys. And that makes a world of difference.
Yeah, he's playing with a sense of and it's not news now. This has been for a while. He's playing with a sense of confidence that we never really knew he had because we hadn't really seen it before. And the first test he had to pass was, Zach coming back, and is he going to be still his same old self, or the new self, I should say. And yeah, he was. He still looked every bit as good. And now it's when he gets into these marquee matchups, like, all right, like, how are you going to match? How are you going to stack up with the best in the NBA? Are you going to play scared? Are you going to play tentative? Nope. He's still playing his exact brand of basketball. Might not be the most eye-popping numbers in the world, but the confidence is there. The basketball smarts are still there. He's still making quick decisions. Like, he's been very impressive against the best in the NBA. And he's only 22 years old, 23 years old. Like, he's still got a lot of time to grow and get better. It's been, I feel bad because I pretty much in the what to watch for in pre-gaming, like every game, one bullet is just like, I love Coby White. He's really good and he's really fun to watch, and his growth has been awesome.
I mean, I definitely
feel bad that I have to write that, but like with this Bulls team, that's what to watch for every night. It's Coby White.
I had my concerns in December when he was on his great run that, it would be that he'd come back down to earth I knew that run we talked about it, was legitimate enough where it's like, okay, this is a breakout season, but like, how much of a breakout season is this? And I think over the last few weeks, it's continued to look like, a legit one, a borderline, that he could be a potential borderline all-star caliber player in the future. Like, that's what
I
he's
think
playing like.
This version of Coby White will be an all-star in the NBA at some point.
I think that
this version of Coby White is good enough to be an all-star player. And I think another thing too, like, he obviously had that great run, but then when he had it was the hand injury, and I think it was something else he kind of tweaked. Like, he went through a slump there, and he was not scoring at those numbers, and the field goal percentage dropped quite a bit. Like, he did not really waver. He still kept playing his game. He got a little bit healthier, and he snapped himself out of that slump. And we haven't seen another one since. So, like, that's another sign for me too, is every time he's had a chance to have that confidence knocked down a peg, it has not been knocked down a peg. He's bounced back from every bit of adversity, answered every challenge, and he's kind of just keeps getting better and more confident as all these challenges come. So I could not be more impressed with Coby White this year.
Yeah, well, we saw that slump happen kind of end December a little bit.
End of the year, right?
End of the year. And then now if you go look at it from January 1st, so calendar 2024 year, he's back to 42.9% on the season from 3.
He's shooting nearly 6, and he's shooting over 6 attempts per game. So
I know they
he's
lost the game, but the game against the Warriors where he was kind of going 3 for 3 with Steph for a while, and like
Yeah.
he
That was nuts.
obviously
Yeah.
Steph got the last laugh, and Steph Curry did what he does in the second half, but like part of the reason Steph Curry had to do what he did in the second half was because Coby White was playing so well, and that kind of woke up Steph. And you know what? Sometimes that happens. But Coby White essentially went shot for shot with Steph Curry, and yeah, he lost that one to one of the greatest point guards of all time and the greatest 3-point shooter of all time. Fine,
Yeah.
but like he belonged in that matchup. That reminded me a lot of like the De'Aaron Fox, Steph Curry, Kings Warriors match back and forth from that one
That's not a
playoff
bad.
series
Yeah,
a couple
not a
years ago.
bad.
That's
Yeah.
kind of what it reminded me of. And look where
Mhm.
De'Aaron Fox is now. Like it's wild that we're saying this right now, but like that's kind of where I see the ceiling.
And I'm
for
sure
Coby
some
White.
people
Like,
that have
I think he
not
can
been.
get there.
Yeah, I'm sure people who have not been paying attention to the Bulls, if they were to hear this, they'd be like, "Oh my God, they sound like such meatheads or whatever." Go watch Coby White.
Go watch Coby White.
He's been
TNT.
incredible.
Start putting the Bulls on. Charles Barkley, you're wrong. There is a reason to watch the Chicago Bulls now, and his name is Coby White. That might be the only reason to watch the Chicago Bulls now. You should listen to the Chicago Bulls though on 670 to score. Great broadcast. But watching, there is a reason. It's Coby White.
Yeah, I keep seeing, like other reporters, other beat reporters for other teams, when the Bulls come to town, they're always like, Coby White's really good. Like, and it's like, yeah, he's changed a lot. And so there's the last two things that I really want to emphasize with Coby, and we've talked about on the show before. The first one is it's not just he's shooting lights out from three and he's he's getting his points. He's playing extremely well-rounded over these last two games. For example, the Phoenix Suns game, 26 points, 9 assists, 10 rebounds. And those assists are yes, some of them are your easy here, DeMar, and then DeMar hits his mid-range shot. But a lot of these are, calculated and just clever passes to set up his teammates and having a good feel for the game. So again, 26 points, 9 assists, 10 rebounds against Phoenix. And then against the Lakers, he comes out and he has 25 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. The rebounding is really impressive. He's always been a little bit bigger than people give it credit for because his wingspan's not really big. He's still 6'5". He's a 6'5" guard. So he's right there. He's bullying, in the paint, trying to get boards, which is awesome to see for someone was known as a scorer type or whatever. But his playmaking and his IQ has just taken a huge step in the right direction. But the second thing that we haven't necessarily spoken about before that I think was really on display these last two games, even though the Bulls lost, was his driving ability. I mean, we're seeing him get to the paint it's unlike anything we've seen from him before. And we always knew that
not since he was in North Carolina.
Right. And we knew he had the speed. That was always a thing with Coby. It was the big thing coming into the league. It was, hey, this guy's super fast. He could be really lethal in transition. And then we knew he had the makings of a really good 3-point shot. But the ball handling was always could he get better in that area? And also just the decision making with the ball in his hands as well. Just, okay, when do I know how to attack? How am I reading the defense? So if you go back specifically to that game versus Phoenix, it was one of the best games I've seen from him in terms of driving to the basket. He hit Durant with like a hesitation.
Oh, it was awesome. It was like
transition.
It was like, it was, I can't even, hesitation move. It was down the sideline. It was kind of down the baseline. Yeah. It was a nice little hezzy hay and finish. It was awesome.
Yeah, but he did. And
it's
then
a 6'11" dude with a 7'4" wingspan.
Right, I did that. I went and I rewatched the game, and there were 3 times in that game where he just hit different Phoenix Suns players with a hezzy and flew right by him. And that's the thing. We again knew the speed was there, but it was, how does he use that in the half court setting, and how does he use that to his advantage and take better control of his tempo, because he has that ability, he has that quick first step, but he needs to know how to turn it on and off to really be able to get past guys. So
I want to issue an apology, by the way, or stat correction. I believe I accidentally said that he didn't put up the best numbers in one of those 2 games. Did not realize he had 26 and 10 against the Suns. That's my bad. Hand up on me.
Yeah, he's been active, especially like I said on the boards. It's been impressive. But the other thing I'd point out, this was these stats are before last night's game against the Lakers. So they're only going to change this a little bit because they're season-wide stats. But he's averaging roughly 12 drives per game, which is, there's 34 players averaging 12 drives per game. He's among that group, and he's shooting 50.8% on those drives, which is a very solid 15th among those 34 players. So he's right. He's not only driving more consistently than we've ever seen before, but he's finishing pretty darn well. And a lot of that has been because, yes, he's
creating the space that he needs with like those hesitation moves, like a little bit further from the paint. But also he's just absorbing contact a lot better than I've really ever seen before. He always had a really good upper body where he could kind of, he could take contact well and avoid getting too sloppy on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's doing a really good job of dribbling and keeping the guys on his hip to kind of keep them to the side so then he can jump and finish high off the glass as opposed to just running into guys and taking that contact. So that's been an improvement. And in general, this driving ability is why a big reason too we've seen, I think, these assist numbers go up because
for sure.
Because not only is he a threat to do that, but he's penetrating the defense and then from there being able to create and have the vision to be able to find guys. So he's making the defense collapse and getting into the paint and then deciding in a split second from there, I can either go up for this shot or I can spray out to a shooter. So just that's it. Overall, it continues to be really encouraging. I thought we might hit a peak there in December where it was like, all right, this is the best we're going to see of him this year. And I'm still happy with it, but it gets better and better for me. And it should be another reason why this front office decides, hey, we have some pieces here. We have him. We have an improving Patrick Williams. We have Ayo Dosunmu. Let's just press this reset button and see what someone like Coby can do as we continue to build out the rest of the roster.
Here's another, this might be a meatball take and playing devil's advocate to moving parts at this deadline outside of DeMar. I think DeMar should be gone no matter what. But I do think because of Coby's breakout year and all the tests that he keeps passing, the next test for him that I would love to see is postseason environment. And I think the Bulls could probably sell DeMar and still be a play-in team. But I want to see him now on the national stage. I want to see him in pressure pack situations. I want to see him on the road against Indiana or New York or whoever that might be in a play-in tournament. I want to see him maybe get a first-round playoff series against the Celtics, and they're not going to win that series, but can he have a 30-point night where he looks really good and almost puts the Bulls on his back and kind of goes and takes them to win? I want to see him pass those tests, not only for him, but the NBA more than any other league, I feel like your reputation is very important. And the way to build up that reputation is having those moments in the playoffs, having those moments on Christmas Day on national TV.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see Coby White get as many of those chances as possible because I would like going into next year, the narrative around the Bulls to be that Coby White is a piece to build around because that's kind of how you start catching the eyes of, other potential stars that might want to come to Chicago or might want to be in a big city or might have interest in being paired with a guy like Coby White. I want to see him start getting those chances to put himself on the map as we know what he is. We know he's an all-star caliber player playing that way this year. And if he keeps playing this way, he will be. But to what you were saying, beat writers keep coming to Chicago, keep being surprised at how good he is. I want that to stop. I want him to have the chance to prove that he is to show everybody, I'm this good. This shouldn't surprise you anymore. And the best way to do that is playing well in the play-in, maybe getting a playoff series, playing well there.
Yeah. And that doesn't, and like we've said on the show before, this doesn't mean that Coby White is the new star to build around. You don't want to misinterpret it. It just means that he's a good piece and you got something there and he's on a great contract. And that's it. And he should just be respected for being a very, a developing young guard and potentially one of the more promising young developing guards. So that's all it is. And so the gushing isn't like, oh, we found the next star in Chicago. It just means that the Bulls have someone there to
have a building block
to build with. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up there. Jam-packed show today, Matt. I feel like
show.
I'm glad we went. Good show. Look at us. Just sit here. No one watching live, patting ourselves on the back. No,
we got 8 people. We were up in the 20s.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. So that was fun. I appreciate everybody for listening. We will be back next week. Deadline is inching closer. No audio issues this time, unless I go listen to it and for some reason there's no audio. That'd be.
We'll probably be fine.
But we'll be okay. And I hope everyone enjoys their weekend. We will be back. The Bulls play on Sunday, and we should be talking about that game. I think we might do early next week as a show.
Yeah.
So we'll be back soon. Anyway, I never get at wrapping these up. We'll see you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.